Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something you might not hear about every day, Mageiricophobia.
That's right. A lot of us feel a little bit unsure in the kitchen sometimes, maybe a bit nervous.
Hmm.
But we're going to explore when that feeling really ramps up into, well, a genuine fear of cooking, sometimes quite debilitating.
Exactly. And we've pulled together some interesting sources for this one. We'll be looking at stuff from specialty psychology. Verywell.com is a good overview. Psychology Today, too.
And even the word itself, we looked into its origins via worldwidewords.org.
Yeah. So the goal today, really, is to get a handle on Mageiricophobia, what it looks like, maybe where it comes from, and what can be done about it. Trying to get some clarity on it.
Okay, let's do it. Mageiricophobia. It's quite a word.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the pronunciation, according to the sources, is Mageiricophobia.
A bit of a mouthful.
Definitely. But yeah, the key thing is what it means. This fear of cooking that's, more than just not liking it.
Right. The sources are pretty clear that, look, lots of people find cooking a chore. Maybe they feel they're bad at it. But
Yeah.
this is a level beyond that. Although they also point out it's usually not seen as needing, like, clinical treatment unless it's really messing up someone's life.
Okay.
And interestingly, it can sometimes look a bit like a social anxiety disorder.
That's interesting. And it seems like it doesn't just show up in one way, right?
Mhm.
There are different flavors of this fear.
Huh. Yeah, you could say that. There are definitely common themes that pop up again and again in the sources.
Okay, like what?
Well, one really big one is the fear of causing foodborne illnesses, like making someone sick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Worrying about undercooking meat or...
Exactly,
Uh,
or cross-contamination, not cleaning properly. It seems to stem from this heavy sense of responsibility, fear of harming people.
that makes total sense. Most of us probably have a quick thought about that. Is this chicken done? But for someone with this phobia, it sounds like it becomes a major, intense worry. Constantly fretting about the rules, the safety stuff.
That's it, exactly. And then there's another big area, fear around the actual process of cooking.
How so?
It can be quite practical things, like a real fear of cutting yourself badly or getting burned.
Okay, physical harm.
Yes, but also just feeling completely unable to actually do the steps in a recipe, feeling overwhelmed, seeing it all as this huge, complicated task that you're bound to mess up.
I can definitely imagine looking at a recipe sometimes with like 20 ingredients and a ton of steps and just
Yeah.
feeling, nope, not today.
Right. And that leads into another aspect, the fear of recipes themselves.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah.
How can you be afraid of a recipe?
Well, they can just look incredibly complicated, daunting. There's a
Mhm.
fear of not following them exactly right, like you'll miss a crucial step and ruin everything.
Right, that precision thing.
Yeah. Or sometimes the opposite if a recipe is a bit vague, cook until done or something.
Yeah, seasoned to taste. What does that even mean?
Exactly. That lack of clear instruction can cause real anxiety for some people. They feel like they can't read between the lines.
I get that.
And then just the sheer number of recipes out there. You go online, there are millions that can actually cause this kind of paralysis, indecision. Too many choices feel like no choice.
Okay, wow. So fear of illness, fear of the process, fear of recipes.
Yeah.
What else? You mentioned something about food knowledge.
Yeah, this one's quite subtle, actually. It's like as you learn more about food, the health benefits, the risks, pesticides, additives, whatever.
Hmm.
For someone prone to this phobia, that knowledge can become a source of anxiety itself. They might get really fixated on all the potential negatives of ingredients, obsessing over it to the point where it actually stops them from cooking, or even enjoying food someone else has cooked.
Wow. So the information itself becomes the problem.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive almost.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like information overload leading to fear. And the sources also mentioned something about food intake itself, especially relating to eating disorders.
Yes, that's a really sensitive point. For individuals who have or have had eating disorders, the whole act of preparing food, being around it, portioning it, it can be really intimidating.
Oh.
It can trigger feelings of losing control or inadequacy, maybe guilt, worry, all tied into their specific struggles with food.
Right, so it's really clear this isn't just, I burn toast. It can be deeply connected to other anxieties about health, control, self-image.
Absolutely. Much broader than just the kitchen itself.
So if someone is experiencing this,
Mhm.
what does it actually feel like? What are the symptoms the sources mention?
Well, like a lot of phobias, the symptoms can be pretty intense, both physical and emotional.
Okay.
Physically, you might see things like lightheadedness, trouble breathing properly, maybe tingling or numbness,
Wow.
fainting even. Wetness, dizziness, sometimes excessive sweating or getting chills, even chest pain can happen.
That sounds really severe, almost like a panic attack.
Yeah, it can definitely present that way, yeah. And emotionally, there's often this overwhelming feeling of losing control, intense nervousness,
Hmm.
and a constant sense of like dread or doom specifically tied to cooking.
Just thinking about it can set it off.
Yeah, which often leads to just stubbornness about cooking or flat out refusal, avoiding it at all costs.
Okay. So where does this actually come from? What are the potential causes or triggers?
The sources point to a few possibilities. It's probably not just one thing, you know?
Sure.
Underlying personality factors might play a role by like general anxiety tendencies, social anxiety, other existing conditions.
Okay. Makes sense?
It could also be triggered by specific events, maybe really high expectations from family growing up,
Yeah.
constant criticism about your cooking,
Yeah, I can see that.
or just bad experiences like really failing badly with a recipe or having a terrible time in, say, a cooking class. Those negative associations can stick. And there's also a suggestion that if it's not dealt with, Mageiricophobia could potentially feed into other phobias or social issues down the line.
That's quite serious. So thinking about the impact,
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously more than just inconvenience, isn't it? What does it mean for someone's actual life?
It really can be significant, yeah. You often see people relying very heavily on pre-made foods, snacks, frozen meals.
Right. Convenience food.
Exactly. Or eating out constantly, getting takeaways all the time.
Okay.
And while that solves the immediate problem of not cooking, the sources do point out that those kinds of diets are often, well, less healthy.
Yeah, usually higher in salt, fat, sugar.
Precisely. And they mention potential links to things like hypertension, obesity, diabetes over the long term.
So there can be real health consequences stemming from this fear.
Definitely. It's not trivial.
Okay, so for someone listening who might be thinking, some of this sounds familiar, or maybe they know someone, what can actually be done about Mageiricophobia? Are there ways to address it?
Yes, thankfully there are. The most common approach mentioned is basically education.
Education. How so?
Learning the basics. Food safety rules, understanding why they matter and how simple they can be. Basic cooking techniques, just demystifying the whole process.
Building confidence through knowledge?
Exactly. Taking away the unknown, which is often where the fear lies. But for more severe cases where it's really causing dysfunction,
Yeah.
then psychotherapy is often recommended, especially things like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT.
Okay, how does that help?
Well, CBT helps people identify and challenge the negative thought patterns and anxieties that are fueling the phobia. It helps change the relationship with those thoughts.
Right, getting at the root of the fear itself.
Mhm.
Okay, and just quickly circling back to the name you mentioned, its origins.
Yeah, just as a point of interest, Mageiricophobia comes from Greek. The word mageros, megros,
And that means?
it means a chef or sometimes a butcher, someone involved in preparing food. So fear of the cook or the cooking process.
Got it. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What are the main things we should really take away from this deep dive?
I think the biggest thing is recognizing that Mageiricophobia is, well, it's real. It's not just laziness or dislike. It's a genuine fear.
Hmm.
And it shows up in lots of different ways. Fear of making people sick, fear of the process, fear of recipes, even fear related to just knowing about food.
Yeah, it's surprisingly complex.
It really is. And importantly, these fears can actually have knock-on effects on diet, health, and general well-being. It's not just in your head. It can impact your physical health.
Right. And understanding those different angles, the potential causes,
Yeah,
that seems like the first step if you want to address it, either for yourself or someone else.
absolutely. Recognition is key.
So maybe a final thought then for you listening. It makes you think about our relationship with food prep, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite complex for everyone, really. Does thinking about a specific fear like this maybe shine a light on any of your own, perhaps milder feelings around cooking? Anxieties about control or health, or even what other people expect when you cook.
It's worth considering.
Yeah. Maybe just take a moment to reflect on how comfortable you feel in the kitchen. Do any of these themes resonate, even just a little bit? Something to think about.